Hey everybody, it is late at night and I am Norman. Tonight, these two watches are gonna go head to head and there will be blood. So let us begin. Okay, so maybe there won't be blood, because both of these watches are actually really fantastic. So let's flip the camera around and let these two duke it out. Welcome to the Battle Royale. We're going to be doing a comparison review of both of these watches, beginning at the clasp and ending at the watch head itself. Then I'll be putting both of these on the wrist, see how they look. Then I'll go over the conclusion. Both of these watches have butterfly clasps. The Rocos is operated using these two buttons. However, if you push on them inadvertently, it can spring loose on your wrist. This has actually happened to me in the short time I've been with it. That is the one downside of its clasp. And when you release them, it really springs. It's like a switchblade. But the clasp is nice and solid. It feels really high quality. Yeah, not bad at all. Other than just those right there, those are a little bit nerve-wracking. The D1 Milano, as I mentioned, also has a butterfly clasp. However, it is closed using friction. So, pop this off. So there are these two pieces here that click onto those. And it also is solid and feels really high quality. And when you click it, that's really solid. These are actually pretty difficult to open up. You have to really pull on them to get them to pop open. I'm not sure how long it'll stay that way. I don't know if they'll loosen up in time. If it stays like this, that would be great, because this is nice and solid, pretty trustworthy clasp there. The Rocos bracelet is nice and solid. Feels very high quality. There are no micro adjustments. You have to just kind of take out links until you can get it to fit. It is nice and stiff. It doesn't really flop around much. I know when David Schwartz first got this watch, it kind of had some squeaking happening with the bracelet, and he used some gun oil to get rid of that, and yeah, it is nice and quiet still, and it just feels quality, just solid. Very cool. The D1 Milano's bracelet is also pretty solid. It's a lot lighter, and you see that it is brushed. Has some beveled edges here. It does not have micro adjustments either. You have to kind of mess with the links until you get it just right. I think right now the watch is a little bit snug, but not too much so. Although when summertime comes around, I may have to put another link in there. But yeah, this looks pretty great. Kind of sci-fi with those bevels on there. How flat it is. And it's really flexible. It doesn't make any noise at all. It's not overly wobbly. Very cool. As for the case, the Rocos has a 40mm case, and it is 12mm in thickness. We see that it is brushed and polished. It does have drilled lugs and an integrated bracelet. The design of this case really makes it look nice and proportioned. You see how the case is kind of thin here, but then there's this hinge component, and then it comes up to this bezel. And the bezel is kind of in from these sides. I mean, everything just looks nice and proportioned. It doesn't look overly large. It looks like it is the correct size. The D1 Milano is also a 40mm watch. However, it is only 6mm in case height. And it is totally flat. There's a little bit of a raise here where the bezel is, but that pretty much encompasses the entire case. So it actually makes this watch look really, really huge. And you'll notice how small the crown is, which kind of enhances that even more. Yeah, however, it is a nice design. I like all the brushing on it there, with just a touch of polish here. Yeah, great design, but I think it should be maybe 37 or 38mm, given how thin it is and how flat it is. The Rocos has a display case back, and it screws down, and it has an automatic movement in it. Now, I'm pretty new to using Watch Check, so I don't really trust my results. So I'm going to defer to David's results, where it was just a few seconds difference per day. Mine were wildly different than that, but again, I just started using that phone app. I don't have a timographer, so I don't trust my own tapping when you're supposed to right as the time hits. So, and then for the dial, we have that amazing blue, the cool horizontal lines on there. There is lume. However, there's a date window, and this is a mineral crystal. The D1 Milano does not have a screw down case back. This one is held in place with little screws, and it is fully brushed. And this is a quartz movement. So it's extremely accurate. I'm not sure how long the battery will last in this, probably a few years. It does not have a date window, which is actually one of the reasons that I went with this. It does not have lume. There's a cool horizontal line pattern to it, much tighter lines than in the Rocos. It has Delphine hands. Kind of dressy with this dial. That is the one part of this watch that is really dressy, and that's the dial. The rest, with all that brushing, is pretty sportsy. So far, the pluses and minuses of these watches. The Rocos looks very proportionate. The design works with the size of the case, and that's a plus here. Whereas the D1 Milano is so thin and flat that it really should have a slightly smaller case. And that is looking at it from a design perspective and not necessarily my own personal preference for smaller watches. I think if you're gonna do a design like this, you need to really watch your case size, because it wears larger than it might look on a spec sheet. and being that flat, it ends up looking like a plate, a platter on your wrist. The crown is a bit undersized, but that's not too terrible, I suppose. The no date is a plus here. Loom over here is a bonus. If you're into loom, I personally don't really care. But it does make these markers much easier to read on the Rocos than on the Milano. Regarding the clasps, these are kind of scary, these buttons here. And the solidness, at least right now, of the clicks here when this clasp is closed, definitely gives this the advantage. But other than that, they are both great. You can see how nice and uninterrupted they are. The D1 Milano is a little bit more camouflaged, but that's kind of a neutral point, I think. They both look really cool. The polished and brushed adds a nice dynamic to this bracelet, and kind of the really thin, bevel-y sci-fi look to this bracelet kind of gives it a cool touch. And both of them have a great 70s style taper to them. This one is fairly thick. It doesn't really move a whole lot, and this one is super flexible. However, when they're on the wrist, I'd have to say that they're both equally comfortable. So let's put these watches on the wrist and see what they look like in comparison to one another. Okay, so here are both watches on my wrists. I've put the D1 Milano on my right wrist because I am left-handed and this is set pretty snug. So this being my dominant wrist, it's a little bit too tight. There they are. Now, the D1 Milano costs almost twice as much as the Rocos, but look at how phenomenal that Rocos looks next to it. It looks really great. I like the originality of the D1 Milano. I like its thickness, but you can see how it kind of looks gigantic, and how the Rocos seems to be far better proportioned. These are both the same size. The Rocos looks a bit fancier, a bit dressier, and yet still really tough. With that thickness, it kind of gives it a sturdy look to it. The Milano looks very kind of, I don't know, sci-fi in a way, with all of its flat, sharp edges, bevels, and thinness. It looks pretty cool too. So there you have it, two amazing Genta-inspired watches that both have their strengths and their weaknesses. One of them is a solid Nautilus homage that can even be dressed up a bit given all these polished surfaces that are on it. However, the clasp has some issues and it has mineral crystal on it. The other is sort of a mashup of the design work that Genta did for Bulgari, as well as his powerhouse pieces, the Nautilus and the Royal Oak. This has a sapphire crystal, However, given how thin it is and how large it is, it kind of looks misproportioned, and with its brushed surfaces, it really doesn't dress up much. Thanks again to David Schwartz Jr. for lending me the Rocos, and if you haven't yet been to his channel, definitely go there. I've included a link to his channel in the description below. Give him a subscribe. He is awesome and his fans are amazing. Thanks for watching.